Good morning, everyone. This is Pastor Tommy McMurtry from Liberty Baptist Church in Rock Falls, back with another episode of the Spirit of Liberty broadcast. Today, we are going to do one final episode kind of towards Calvinism. We're doing this by popular demand, and this episode is completely just for fun. I am not going to get in deep doctrinally today. We're just going to kind of have some fun today, but I want to do this to kind of illustrate something, and that is why I believe many IFB Baptists go Calvinist. There is a lot of lamenting going on in certain circles of the IFB world, not so much in the crowd that I run with, but they see Baptists that are going towards Calvinism. And of course, they're always upset by that. I get that. But they often just kind of lament and they wonder, why are they going this direction? And I personally think that there is a reason for it. Obviously, I do not agree with their decision, but I think when you see a trend going on that's negative in your movement, I think it's usually because there's something wrong with your movement. And I think there's something wrong in the IFB world, something that's very common, especially from those who are constantly lamenting the fact that many people are turning from IFB doctrine to Calvinism. And I want to kind of illustrate that in a way and just kind of have some fun with it. All right. Sometimes you just got to make light of things. You got to have some fun. And I really want to do that today. And so I hope you get a blessing from it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to share several clips of Baptists going against Calvinists. And these are funny. Okay. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and admit it. I got all these clips. I found them from a Twitter account that's called Fake Preacher or Fake Sermon. I think it is. I think it's called Fake Sermon. It's a Twitter account. I don't know who puts it out, but I enjoy watching the clips that are on there. One, because many of the clips they share I think are great and I enjoy. But many of them are very stupid too. And you know what? IFB sometimes say some pretty stupid things, and I get a chuckle out of it. So I enjoy watching the clips. Said a lot of stuff's great, some of it not so much. I wish I could tell you that everything in the IFB world is just great and they're all wonderful, but that's not the case, and I think some of these clips prove it. So we're going to look at these because I believe these clips give an illustration of why many are turning to Calvinism in the IFB world, and a lot of these are from Tony Hudson, and he's seen. And I don't know this. I don't know if this Fake Sermon account is Calvinist. They do seem to get exceptionally triggered when stuff is said about Calvinism. So I don't know, because there seems like Twitter's got a lot of just rabid Calvinists on there, just always getting mad at anybody that says anything against Calvinism. But a lot of their accounts too are typically anonymous, because there's a lot of Calvinists out there that they love exposing, the IFB for the things that they say or the teaching they do that's bad. But yet, where's their teaching? Whoever has that Fake Sermon account, let's see some of your sermons, all right? Where's a real sermon from you that we can critique? It's often hard to find that. But anyway, and I probably shouldn't do a plug for these people, but I find them entertaining. That doesn't mean I respect them or agree with them. I do find them entertaining because some of these clips are funny. So we're going to look at some of these clips and then talk about them, because I think they illustrate why a lot of people in the IFB world are going towards Calvinism. So here's the first one we're going to watch from Dr. Tony Hudson. And let me say again, I do not endorse these preachers that we're seeing. While I may agree with some of the things they say, I do not endorse these preachers, but it doesn't mean I don't enjoy hearing some of this. So let's go ahead and listen to this first clip.
These Calvinists say he's irresistible. That's false doctrine, Calvinism. I always tell them Calvinists, I hate it for y'all. Them know-it-all Calvinists looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, I hate it for y'all. Jesus didn't die for y'all. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, he came to seek and to save that which was lost. According to your doctrine, you saved for the foundations of the world. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Somebody say amen. According to their own doctrine, they can't even get saved. Help me now. That's good preaching. Man, I'm feeling good now. It's time to stop.
Oh, man. I absolutely love it. I love it. All right, there we go. We're back. Oh man, so legitimate question. And obviously, I think there's a little misrepresenting going on right there. I don't think that's exactly how they teach it, but at the same time, it is just kind of funny. But here's the thing about that. Okay, notice that got a lot of amens, because if you go to an IFB meeting, you say anything against Calvinists, people are gonna amen it. Why? Because we don't like them. All right, we disagree with the doctrine. But here's the problem. And I'm not saying he was, at a meeting like that. I don't know. That might have been a preacher's conference or something. I'm not saying when he gets up there and he takes a swing at Calvinists that he's got to go and he's got to take the time to just, debunk everything that they teach. A lot of these preachers' conferences, camp meetings, these are things where guys come together and you just kind of get yourself fired up. You fire up the base. Okay. I don't think that's wrong. Okay? I really don't. I enjoy it. Okay. I have gone to meetings like that my entire life, and that crowd he's preaching to, for the most part, he does not need to go and do an in-depth, biblical exegesis on, Romans 9 to disprove Calvinism. Not with that crowd. They've already rejected Calvinism. They're against it, and they ain't about to change their mind on it. So what do? You fire up the base. You kind of start slamming the enemy. I enjoy that. All right. I'm just going to tell you that right now. However, though, when you do it as much as Tony Hudson does, okay, obviously he's seeing a lot of people defect to Calvinism. So, and the truth is, I'm not seeing that in the crowd that I run with. I've not had that in my church at all. I haven't had people get deceived by that. Most of the teaching I've done against Calvinism, it's been for the internet on this program, because we really don't need it in our church. So it's not something I really need to lament. And I do. And sometimes from my pulpit, I might take a shot at the Calvinists just for fun, just because I know they watch me and it drives them crazy. I'm not saying that's wrong, but if I had people in my church that were leaving it, because of Calvinism, at some point, I'm going to need to disprove that doctrine. I'm going to have to actually go to the scriptures that they use. I'm going to have to actually show where they're wrong and go verse by verse and line by line through the scriptures to show where they're wrong. They don't do that in these churches. They never do that. You're lucky to get more than 3 or 4 verses out of Tony Hudson. So the problem is, you got guys sitting there, they're struggling, they're hearing this stuff, and all they hear are the insults. And I'm not saying Tony Hudson can't get up and just, verse by verse, go through the scriptures and so they're wrong. But I will say, I've never heard him even try to do that. Any sermon I've ever heard him preached, it's just been, a few verses and a whole bunch of showmanship and, insults. Okay. That's fun. I enjoy watching it. But if I was somebody who was struggling with Calvinism, I need more than that. I need you to show where the Calvinists are wrong and where you're right, and they don't do that. Okay. So I think that's one of the reasons there. And if he's obviously seeing as many people go that direction as he's saying he is, you know what? It's time to step up, buddy. Why don't you give us your exegesis on Romans chapter 9. That's one of the things I did. Obviously, I don't need to go through all the scriptures that they use because I'm not losing people to that. But in these programs, that's what I've been doing. I've mainly been focusing on one of their passages they like to use and showing where they're wrong. And I don't need to avoid Romans chapter 9. I don't need to avoid the word predestination, or I don't shy away from the word elect. I understand what those things mean, and I'm able to preach on those things, but these guys don't do that. Okay? And then they wonder why they're losing everybody to Calvinism. I think that's why. Okay? We're not losing people to Calvinism over here. So, maybe it's because we're doing something right. But let's watch another example. I forgot the name of this pastor. Definitely a camp meeting guy by the way he preaches. But let's listen to what he has to say and see if he can shed any light on this situation. So here we go.
It's going to heaven. Amen. God saved a bunch over here and damned a bunch over there. Amen. It's a funny thing to me. It's only their families going to get in. Ain't that strange? I believe it's a whosoever. How many's a whosoever? pain. God, Jesus said in John 6:37, all the Father give me shall come to me, and him that cometh to me I will no wise cast out. Hallelujah. I'm sealed, praise God. I'm locked in. Somebody ought to say something about the assurance.
All right. So, well, I'm glad I'm in that crowd. I don't know if you heard that guy in the audience. Folks, I love camp meetings. I love camp meeting preaching. You say you make fun of it all the time, Pastor Tom. I know, but it's just because I'm jealous. I wish I had a Southern accent. I wish I could preach like that. I find it extremely entertaining. Whether or not it's edifying, I think it's edifying too, to a certain extent. But that type of preaching, you're not going to win anybody over. But it is a good way to fire up the base. All right, it's a lot of fun, and so, but that right there, that's pretty much how you see Calvinism refuted. That's about as deep as it gets, right there. Is, you know, I'm glad I'm not like they are. I'm glad, you know, I believe in a whosoever. You know, I'm glad I'm not in that crowd. You know, that doesn't change anyone's mind. Okay, any Calvinist that would be sitting in a meeting like that is not going to hear anything he says and cause it to change his mind. You know, that doesn't work. It works for firing up the base. And let's go ahead. Let's fire up the base. You know, let's get our people excited. Let's have our get-togethers and our conferences where we get each other all fired up and excited. But at the same time, we need to go through the scriptures. We need to go in depth. Let's go to these passages that they're always going to, and let's take them away. But that's just not happening. We see that too in that same crowd. For example, when they want to refute the Post-Trib doctrine, what do? And this is about as far as it goes. Okay, and when I was starting to see the error of the pre-trib rapture, you know, I would go to these meetings, you know, knowing this post-trib thing was growing, hoping these preachers would prove to me that the pre-trib rapture was true. And I'd go to these meetings just hoping they'd talk about it. And they often would, but here was the extent of it usually. You got them bunch of mid-tribbers out there thinking we're going halfway through the tribulation. Bless God, I ain't going to be here for none of it. I ain't going to be here for 1 second of it. They can stick around if they want for half the tribulation, but me, I'm going up with the first load, amen. That's what they do. That was all I would hear. They're looking for the undertaker. I'm looking for the upper taker. That's what they would do. That was the extent of it. And I went there, you know, hoping at the time to, you know, hear them debunk some of these things that I was hearing, and they never did. They went to insults. They went to one-liners. They never cracked open the scriptures, you know, and if they did, it was one verse. They take it out of context. You know, Revelation 4:1, you know, proves it. That's what they would do. And that was very frustrating. And I realized I'm not going to get anything here at this conference. And the thing that these guys need to realize, they have these huge conferences. A lot of young guys, they come there wanting to be encouraged, but often they have been discouraged by false doctrine that they've heard. They've been listening to other people. And many times they come wanting to be talked off the ledge. They come wanting you to, you know, reinforce that what the position that they have is true. And I think they need to take some time at these conferences to actually go in depth. You know, it might not get the people running the aisles. It might not get people turning cartwheels and things like that, but it might get some preachers to stick to the truth and stand by the stuff and not end up defecting to one of these false religions. So I think they're making a big mistake. And listen, again, I believe Donnie Dalton is his name. I don't know what this guy preaches. I don't know if that was at a camp meeting. I'm not saying these guys never go in depth with the scriptures to disprove these things, but I am saying, as another young preacher that's out there, you know, who is influenced and, you know, who hears the same things in the online world and the television preacher world and all that kind of stuff, I'm not hearing these guys' voices on these things. I mean, I challenge you to find, you know, a sermon of Tony Hudson debunking Calvinism where he goes through the scriptures. You're probably not going to do it. You'll hear him take a pot shot at him pretty much every sermon, but he doesn't go in depth, not like his dad, who actually wrote a book on why I disagree with all 5 points of Calvinism. He doesn't do that, and none of these guys do. It's just, they take their little pot shots, and that's all fun. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying we need more from these guys. So here's another one, clip from Tony Hudson that I think is a lot of fun.
That's good preaching. Calvinism is a false doctrine. Calvinism is much false doctrine as a woman preacher. Yeah, man. Limited atonement, my hind leg. Amen. We've been involved in a purpose. We've been involved with people. He said, I've chosen him that he's going to witness to kings.
All right. So notice there. All right. First off, that sounds great. Man, Calvinism is much false doctrine as a woman preacher. Okay, well, I agree with that. I agree that, that I don't believe in women preachers. However, you didn't prove anything by saying that. Okay. All right. Yeah, you said it was false. Great. Most of us probably agree with that. All right. But then this is the line I love. All right. So I'm trying to picture myself, I'm a young pastor who's maybe struggling with Calvinism. I've been listening to stuff. I've been reading some books, or maybe I've got somebody in my church that's struggling with Calvinism. So I go to these meetings where all the big names are at, hoping to get some nugget of truth from them that I can take home to my church to help stop them from, being persuaded by these Calvinists. All right. So I'm at that meeting. I go back to my church, and I know I've got somebody in my church struggling with Calvinism. So I'm going to debunk it. And I just get up and I say the same thing. Calvinism is much a false doctrine as a woman preacher. Limited atonement, my hind leg. Okay. Now, first off, I can't get away with that. Okay. Because that's not me. I don't have Tony Hudson's personality. Okay. I don't have Tony Hudson's appearance, his theatrics. If I got up in my church in Illinois, and I did, my folks would just start laughing if I did that. But either way, okay, how is that going to change anybody's mind? Okay, it fires up the base. Okay, I might steal that line just to get a laugh out of my people, just to, help hold their attention. I'm not saying you can't do stuff like that. Okay, I think I'm going to start saying my hind leg when I'm preaching, because I just like how it sounds. It's funny, but it doesn't prove anything. And it is a serious thing when people are getting into false doctrine and following these things. And you know what? I'm not just going to be so lazy that all I do to debunk these things is just come up with clever one-liners. I'm going to get into the scriptures, and I'm going to get to the bottom of these things, and I'm going to win people over with the truth, because there are those that need it. There will be times too where I preach just firing up the base. Again, I'm not being critical of the method here or what they're doing there. I'm not saying it's wrong. I actually kind of like it. All right. But I do believe they need more. And if they're doing it, I'd love it if they put it out there. I'd like to see it. I'd like to hear it. I like any good preaching against Calvinism. Show me what you got. Okay. Give me something I can actually use. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get away, with Jeff Dollar watching all my videos, and I guarantee he's watching this one. All right. And I'm trying to, defeat Jeff Dollar and his doctrine. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere if, when Jeff Dollar goes to the scriptures and he expounds in his scripture, I just get up and I just say, my hind leg. I think he's going to have his way with me on that if I do that. So, give us your nuggets of truth that you have, assuming you have them. But let's watch another clip. I think these are fun.
Everybody okay? It's preaching time. Read a little sermon, say nothing. I've heard so many messages. What is he trying to say? Am I the only one who sits in conferences and goes? And finally I make eye contact with a brother and I go, is this guy for it or against it? Which side? Where's he stand? Oh, yeah.
All right. So notice on that particular clip there. Now, he's not talking about Calvinism right there, but notice how he's saying, I don't know whether the guy's for it or against it. You know, I don't know which side he's on. You know why, Pastor Hudson? It's because the guy is preaching like you preach, all right? He just gets up there and, okay, while we know that you're against Calvinism, all right, we get it. All right, we get that you're against Calvinism. I'm glad you're against Calvinism. All right, but now tell us why. Show us from the scriptures where they're wrong. I know you're against it, but you know what I don't know? I don't know how you interpret Romans 9. I don't know how you interpret the verses that they would use. Okay? All right, I get it. Limited atonement, you're against it. All right? But what are your positions on the passages that they use to teach limited atonement? That's what I want to know. So I do the same thing when I go to conferences, okay? And I know he's talking about the trendies where you don't, they just don't want to be against anything. All right? I get that, what he's talking about. But in his crowd, you know their position, okay? I know Tony Hudson's against the trendies, and I'm glad he's against the trendies. I know he's against the Calvinists and all that junk. I get that, but I want to know how he interprets the Bible. I want to know, how he would exegete the scriptures, and you can't figure that out. And so you get up and, you hear him just, rattle off a bunch of insults, and things like, but I can't, that makes it easy too, where the Calvinists can't really critique you. Because, all they'll do then is just make videos about how hateful and how mean-spirited you are and how they're gracious and loving. And that's lame too. You don't win anybody over on that either. So, show us, tell us the scriptures that you use, expound them. That's what people are wanting to know. And let's do one more Tony Hudson clip. All right, here we go.
Made for. Well, where does everybody die that rejects Christ? Are they all angels and devils? No, the Bible said hell hath enlarged herself. Why did God make hell so small if he already knew who was going? Because he wasn't willing that any should perish, so he has to enlarge hell. That's Bible. You look right, if I had a pipe, I'd say put it in there and smoke it, friend. But my pipe's out in my truck with my chewing tobacco. Is everybody all right? Hey, look up in here.
All right. So first off, all right, and listen, man, I want to be on Pastor Hudson's side so bad. I really do. But folks, what he just did with the scriptures there is ridiculous, and it proves nothing. All right. First off, let's go to that passage in Isaiah chapter 5. Okay. It says in verse 13, therefore my people are gone into captivity because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Therefore hell hath enlarged herself and opened her mouth without measure in their glory and their multitude and their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend into it. So notice what he's doing in that passage there is, he's just basically letting know they are on their way to hell. And did hell literally open up its mouth and swallow them in that story, like in a physical sense? It's a figurative way of speaking that, hell is ready for you guys. It is wide open. It's like when we use the term, they're going to split hell wide open. Okay. We're not speaking literally. All right. What does that even mean, to split hell wide open? There's, figurative terms that we use, but either way. Okay, and people always talk about that's why there's all these earthquakes. Hell's getting bigger, to fit all these people in there. All right, now, even if that were the case, that doesn't disprove Calvinism. Okay, I hope y'all understand that. And that right there is about as deep as I've seen Tony Hudson get in trying to defend Calvinism, and it failed miserably. All right, he takes, what he did with that passage is what ends up making people on our side look bad. When that's your go-to to disprove Calvinism, I'm sorry, you're not going to change anybody's mind. And that guy that's maybe leaning in that direction, you're not going to stop him from that. You've got to go to Romans 9. You've got to go to these passages. And I explained before why, the IFB can't go to Romans 9 because it would ruin their teaching about Israel. That's why they can't go there. And so they're just kind of letting the Calvinists have that chapter. And I think that's wrong. And so We've got to actually get the scriptures. Except I like the jokes. All right. It's fun for firing up the base. In fact, I've got a few Calvinist jokes right here. I'd like to tell you, just because again, Calvinists, they don't have a sense of humor. Okay. They don't take these things very well. And I wish I could tell you I made these up, but I'm not smart enough to make up jokes. But here's just a few. All right. Just for fun. This is to fire up our base. Right. Because you can do that sometime. We're doing it. It says, why do Calvinists make great telemarketers? Because they love telling people they've been pre-qualified. Butcher that one. Did you hear about the Calvinist scoreboard manufacturer? Their scoreboard posts the final score at the beginning of the game. And then, how many Calvinists does it take to change a light bulb? None. It was defective from the beginning and predestined to go out. Another one about how many it takes to change a light bulb. It says, well, the Calvinists first have to debate whether it is a violation of providence to change a light bulb because maybe it is meant to be dark. They also have to debate whether one of the elect should stoop so low as to perform manual labor. In the meantime, the Baptist changes the light bulb. And then another one, why do Calvinists avoid taxi cabs? Because the driver makes them tell him where they want to go. And Calvinists prefer subways and trains because the destinations are all predestined. And then, why should you choose a Calvinist realtor? Because they do not believe in a Great Commission. And then, why do Calvinists do so poorly on college tests? They can't handle multiple choice questions. And then, what do you call a Calvinist missionary? A figment of your imagination. And then, how do you confuse a Calvinist? Tell him to take him to a buffet and tell him to get whatever he wants. So those are just funny. It's kind of like, did you hear the one about the two Calvinists out soul winning? Yeah, I didn't hear that one either. But anyway, just a little bit of material that you can use when you're out firing up your base. Go for it. Have fun with it. But we've got to do more than that. That can't be all that you do. All right. I learned these jokes, but I'm not going to change anybody's mind with the jokes. In fact, I'm not even going to keep anybody on our side with the jokes. Okay. We're just going to have some fun with those. And let me just go to one passage of scripture while I have you here. Bible says, because I think this is another reason why we're seeing guys go Calvinist. It says, preach the word in 2 Timothy 4:2. Be instant in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering and doctrine. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. Folks, the Calvinism, it takes people not only into bad doctrine, but they tend to go liberal. They tend to become more seeker sensitive in many ways. And, you don't hear about too many Calvinists being persecuted today. Of course, they'll tell you about all the Calvinists from the past, 500 years ago, that were persecuted. But where do you see it today? They're not. You know why? Because they're soft, they're lame, and they have taken it's a very easy path. They heap to themselves teachers after their own lusts. Why? Everybody wants to think they're smarter than everybody else. Everybody wants to think they have all this intellect. Okay. And Calvinists, they love to brag about all the books that they've read and all the education they've done. And everyone who isn't Calvinist is obviously not very well read. They've obviously have not been educated, very much. Where did they get their training? Who sent these people out? While they just go and give all their accolades and all their accomplishments. That is something that our lusts would want to go for. And it's how they're preying on these people. And the truth is, I don't think, true Bible believers and Bible preachers need to put on this show of how smart we are and how educated we are. I don't think we need to be going and getting all these titles from men. I don't think we need to do that stuff, but I don't think we need to celebrate stupidity either. I don't think we need to act like, ignorance is a virtue, which is what we're seeing on the other side. I think there's a way to be balanced in that end. And I'm afraid that because that's the method that Baptists are using in many cases, we're seeing guys follow their lusts and thinking, well, you know what? I don't look like an idiot. At least if I go Calvinist, I can look smart. And I think that's part of the problem. If you get in depth in the Bible, if you dig deep, okay, the more you learn, okay, it's not going to take you into Calvinism. Okay, being intellectual does not mean you're going to go Calvinist. there's a lot of things I can go into on why that is, but either way, we're out of time. I want to encourage preachers that are out there, okay, whether you like my preaching or not, do more than just doing the insults and the one-liners. Keep firing up your bass. Tell your Calvinist jokes. They're funny, okay? But you know what? Answer the Calvinist questions. That person in your church that's struggling with Calvinism, go to the scriptures. If they keep getting messed up on Romans 9, prove to them that you're right from Romans 9. Go to those scriptures, because we don't need people going into that. Calvinism does more to just kill a church and kill soul winning. It kills evangelism more than anything that I've ever seen. And I get why these pastors are lamenting all these guys going Calvinist, but I believe they're not doing what needs to be done to stop it. I want to do that, and I hope they'll do it too. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed the clips. Just this program, nothing in depth, just for fun, firing up the bass, and I hope you got a blessing from it. So this is the last we're going to be doing on Calvinism for a while. Planning on going on to some other things, but I hope you will be back next week for the next Spirit of Liberty broadcast. Thank you for watching, and God bless.